switch to English now, as the participants of our first talk will also talk in English. And I will briefly introduce to you Anke Charton. She is Assistant Professor at the Institute of Theatre, Film and Media Studies at the University of Vienna, and her research focuses on music theatre and singing voice history, as well as the cultural history of gender and intersectional and decolonial approaches. So we'll give the floor now to Anke Charton, Ms. Karita, Mattila.
Thanks and welcome also for me this afternoon. I have to apologize up front to the Jelinek Verbund because they're invited me here as a professor for theatre and gender, and I arrive here as a huge opera fan. And as such, it is of course an utmost delight to introduce to you, even if unnecessary, Karita Mattila, who Helsinki Academy, at the Symposiums Academy in Helsinki. You see, I'm nervous, right? This is 15-year-old me fainting at the top.
Just take it easy. I can tell you how nervous I was this morning when I heard that I would be the only one to speak about this. So it's always good. And I apologize for using the phone, but I have made some notes on the phone, so I'll just use it for that.
So I brought the conservative notes so it should be settled. So you studied at the Symposiums Academy in Helsinki. You also studied with Vera Rosa in London. You won the first ever club singer of the world in '83, and since then you've basically been on all the stages in all the cities. And you've sung a lot of the repertoire of late 19th, early 20th century that was also present in the talk just now. And right at this moment you are here at the Salzburg Festival as the Duchess, the Aunt Duchess, in Portuguese Dico Sor Angelica. So we can talk a bit about that perhaps. I mean, I saw you last night.
Is she not Duchess? I just call her Aunt.
But so it's the ensemble?
No, that's the Portuguese, of course.
So that's the Portuguesa. I saw it last night on Arte. You were terrifying. Congratulations. And you utter the most terrifying phrase of the entire opera, I think, when you talk about how the child of Sor Angelica has died, and you say this, fu fatto tutto per salvarlo, it was done everything to save them. And the way you managed to deliver it, it seems that you were not very sorry that the child died. So we have actually a woman there who is working within this patriarchal system, who is horrible to Angelica in a way, who is a survivor. How do you approach such a woman who lives in such a system and has to commit these things to survive?
That's a very good point. I mean, first of all, I was in, this is the first time I'm doing this part, and I am forever grateful for having had this opportunity to work with a fantastic stage director, Christoph Roy, who really works very detailed. I mean, focuses on details and all the persons, the characters need. Every detail is very important. It's interesting that you mentioned that point because, and I'm curious that it comes across like that because actually I think that was actually the meaning also of that particular phrase. Because what Christoph suggested to me when we were in that working process was that when you say that, you know that Angelica is going to believe that you killed him. So it's very self-defensive. So she honors even herself even harder to just utter that sentence that everything was done. And I know you think I killed him. So that was the background to think about. Do I really need this? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Do you need? Yes. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be anything radical towards that. Yeah, but it's because of that detailed directing style that I think made it so successful in general. Everybody, I mean, I was only in Sora Angelica, but I just felt that everybody had such a meaningful, they had a meaning why they are on stage, and that's admirable, and that's what I, as a performer, love with this work in that process. Yeah.
So we've heard right now, I'm sorry, I'm not here. We heard a lot about women who die, and women who die out of self-sacrifice, women who die to maintain a society or a community. But if I look at the over that you have sung a lot of survivors, actually. You have sung Jennifer, who lives, you have sung Leonora, who lives, you have sung Sieglinde, who does not die in the opera, you have sung Salome, who would live, and it takes a whole army of men with shields to crush her, or she might also live, I don't know. So there is something that's also surviving. And of course, as I was preparing for meeting you here, I was looking on YouTube through all performances of yours, many that I've watched when they came out initially. And there's something about your presence that's, for me, that there's a person walking out who is resistant to the idea of, I have less rights to live because I'm a woman, or this role will have to die because she's a woman. It's somebody who's there and who then interacts with the facts. So is there something of this survival that you are passing on to these roles? Why do these roles live?
Well, because they are written like survivors. So Jennifer is but the crucial thing, for example, with these Janacek roles for me is that that's why I've always enjoyed all the Janacek parts that I have been fortunate to perform and sing. It became very clear from my first Jennifer in late 90s, that 98 actually, it was in Hamburg, that Janacek is not a, I mean, it's those librettis they are not about they are not feminists. He wasn't a feminist. He was just to our delight, the female soprano, female singers. It was our delight that to sing them. They were very fantastic music, and so. But I thought I very early on started thinking of Janacek as a man of his time, and just curious that and happy that he wrote so many wonderful female characters. But the crucial thing, what made me particularly enjoy, for example, Jennifer, both as a Jennifer during the title role and Kostelnička, is that, and then also Katja, and I also did Kabanica. So these fascinating duo, these female characters, is the crucial thing about, and the curious thing, that there aren't any heroes. That's why I love Janacek, these stories, because they are human beings, they are survivors. I think the men, in for example, Katja, I think they are more or less, I mean, they are not heroes, they are cowards. I mean, horrible situation, so they go, they leave. And so I think that's very often the case in the real life. I mean, that's what I believe in, and according along my experience, there aren't any heroes. There are human beings. There is some heroism in some behavior. Like I think Jennifer, what makes Jennifer a hero is probably the fact that she can forgive, which felt incredible at the time when I was studying Jennifer, that she can forgive Laca what he did and get and marry him and forgive. That's what makes her heroic. And in an ironic way, maybe we don't have time for that explanation about what makes Kostelnička, in my eyes, in certain way, okay, in quotes, heroic because it is a heroic moment for her to confess, and the relief that she can face her punishment, and she goes, who knows how everybody can imagine how the story is going to continue, but it's the rebirth of her life, that what she learns from her stepdaughter, and then the fact that she goes and then actually is relieved after all keeping that secret, that horrible thing she did within her. It was far from premeditated, but what she did was, of course, we can argue what her reasons were, but for what the way I understand it, and my wonderful director at the time, also Olivier Tambosi, that it was of course very selfish to think that what's best for the daughter, it all came from the life that she never had. She also had this violence. It's a very interesting. I'm sorry, my story is going from one thing, but it's only because I didn't quite prepare to sit here by myself. Anyway, but this is fun actually. Hopefully you think so too. So you can tell me sure. You can tell me sure. But I was just getting to the point that the violence that what made her become and have those feelings to start living the life of her step-mother, how timeless and real is that? Then she starts wanting all those things that she never had in her life, and then of course this falling in love with the wrong person, according to stepmother, let alone to get pregnant, was the almost like a end of her life. So that it's so incredible, the fact that then she ends up doing what she does. It must be something like, snap, whatever, that would be a subject of its own. But what comes to then, I don't even let you ask your questions. I was meaning to compare these Katja and Kabanica, because those are going to be the only things. Oh, actually, I have what I wrote this morning. I wrote Katja Kabanica, violence, merchants' wives. Yeah, that was the Russian. That's what happened. Merchants beat their wives. Okay, Kabanica for sure was beaten, of course, and then the merchants beat their wives, and the wives beat their kids, girls, boys, both, and this violence that's the way my personal understanding of, after having done those both roles. And the fact that Katja kills herself at the end, it was like ironically in many action movies these days, if you don't know what to do with somebody who has too complicated a life, then you can't somehow make them commit suicide or they just die accidentally. But I think that when Katja comes to it's like a wall that there is no other choice or possibility than to jump into the river. There are other heroines too that jumped. Dosta jumped, and so to this. It is. It's kind of the way I felt when I was doing those parts, that it is somehow the traditional way also to handle the women characters, to handle those bad situations, unless if they are not killed. Like, for example, I promised I wouldn't like to speak about Salome too much, because I'm processing, I'm learning Herodias now, and since I'm in the learning process and I haven't done it before, and the rehearsal starts in less than in a month in Paris, so I would like to go there with an open mind, so I don't want to take too much time. But it's true, when Petrarch says that, when Herodes says menteuse and he says menteille at the end, so although she got these, where it came her these totally bizarre, that she wants a head of somebody, so the violence is also so like bread and butter, so I want that head, because I can't get him, so I want the head. So it's just like incredible. But at the end, and also of course the time, but how much has that changed? It was before Christ, and yet I felt it depends on the director's concept. But for me, Salome is. It will be killed. I mean, these soldiers just kill her. So that's the end of it. That's the way I understand. I haven't been in a, in a concert where something else happened. But they might not show it on stage. But for me, it was clear that she will be killed, and that's it. So are there any questions left?
Well, you've gone through most of them. That's interesting. You talk about Katika, about the violence that goes on, that women get beaten by their husbands, they beat their children, and the only way to stop this cycle of violence is then for the women to turn the violence against themselves. And Salome would fall a bit out of that because she doesn't kill herself.
Yes.
She is killed, and you hear the music with the she is. It takes a lot of shields to kill Salome, apparently. Especially your Salome, probably. I think you brought down Europe in 2004 with the Salome. I've been going through the YouTube comments, it was a delight to read. So Salome would perhaps be a bit untypical, but returning to what you said about the Janacek woman, and especially Geschändet, you mentioned that Tambosi production, the one with the huge rock.
Yes.
There's one thing, well, first of all, you were my first Kilufa in the recording with Heiting, and I want you CDs up and down, and when you started singing Geschändet, I thought, I can't imagine her in that part, and she's so much the Kilufa I grew up with. And then I saw that production and this huge rock, and the scene that stuck with me is, or that made me understand or sympathize with Geschändet at that point, and I think I was too young to understand her, is that she has to beg and to grovel to these men who mistreated her daughter, who mistreated her, and the way you did it, you didn't move much, but you could see this frustration in your entire body, this helpless fury, and you need to sort of sacrifice your dignity to get your mates, that you need to plan your life around these men. I mean, how much frustration must there be inside somebody like Geschändet?
But because, you know, that's why, for me, it's very, I'm glad you saw my Geschändet too. Because I enjoy those both parts. When I say enjoy, they're so fulfilling, both musically and drama-wise. Geschändet, totally different. It's also totally different music. I remember when I started learning it, I totally underestimated it because I thought, oh, I've done my share of Chileano first. Geschändet is just, I mean, I know the music so well, and I've been, I have had so many wonderful Geschändet, so I almost know their music, ha ha ha. So she's totally different. The music, the style is totally different and makes total sense. But I think that this there are also these female. Where does this female misogyny? Yes, towards it's probably a wrong word because it's towards women, but towards men. That kind of there is no all these men for Geschändet are too little. They can't fulfill any of her view what a man should be, let alone the perfect man for Jennifer. And because of her own misery with her husband, she had that's important for me that I get to sing. It's not always done in all the productions, the Geschändet's first aria. But for me, it's very important because I've always believed in the fact that the audience doesn't need to prepare by doing their homework or anything. They should come to the opera with an open mind and just see and hear and experience it, and it has to somehow get clear what's going on, and they can just kind of like jump along and they can follow the story and along what's happening on stage and the music, of course, both. So the first aria for me is I was so happy that I was able to, and I was always asking that, double checking that, can I, as Geschändet, can I sing the first aria? Because she's then telling the same, these things, what happened to her for the whole village crowd to hear, and in front of her stepdaughter, because it was such a despicable, and how she despised this Steva, and this provocative aria in a way that provokes, but also it's just so raw. She has no shame in she doesn't feel shame telling how she was this man that she was with beat her and treated her like an animal, and she had to hide to the cornfields, and now everybody hears, and it's such an embarrassing moment. But it's also part of the fact that when she's at that point, that she doesn't care what these village men think, that this hatred. But it's also clear, and it comes along with that aria, how she despises her own life. She doesn't feel her worth comes from this external respect from the village people. They don't like her, but they respect her, and she lives on that. That is what she has. This Geschändet is not a name, but it's kind of like her title, and what she does with the church. So it's that has given the value, but what her own life she doesn't value, and it's amazing that in that opera, that both women survive at the end for different reasons, and that Jennifer has grown this strength within, that she can forgive, and then Geschändet, of course, she gets caught, but in the meantime, I think that if she hadn't gotten caught, she would have died of an illness, because it was at least in this concept meant to be that she's in the third act, she's like sick, and because what she did is ruining her health. She's not the same woman anymore, even before she got caught. And then that's why the ability and the opportunity to confess, suddenly maybe she will, I always thought that when she goes to prison, she will probably become my thought, a good doer, or maybe she starts reaching to the people do something good in the prison. And that made me also understand that if your motto in preparation is there are no bad people or evil people and good people, there are just people who make mistakes, and there are these stories. You may not become a crowd pleaser, but at least to find some sympathetic aspect of every character, at least if they are as human beings. I mean, you don't know all about all the Wagner characters if they are human beings, but still. Okay, I think I'm lost.
Well, we have some more things. As the symposium is called Kapital.Geschlecht, it also links us to the idea of economy and money and how do operas women relate to money. And I looked at some of the survivors you have studied, for example, Leonore Fidelio. How does she get access to Rocco's trust and to the casting for her husband is because she knows how to handle money. Or for example, you've sung Hannah of the Married Widow, and Hannah has a lot of choice. And why does she? Because she's rich. And we've just talked about the Anna-Czech women, they are not rich at all. So is survival in patriarchy linked to money? Can a woman survive in patriarchy without money?
Well, if you don't have money, you are then dependent of somebody who has, and then that's often makes sense in those stories where women have these harmful relationships towards themselves. But on the other hand, they probably, the tradition is that they are used to the fact that their mothers didn't have money anyway, so they probably don't dream so big anyway. That's it's so nice that you mentioned Hannah. I only got to do the Merry Widow once, and I was so happy because I thought for once I can laugh on stage, and I can love, and I get at the end I get the man whom I love. I don't commit suicide or I don't die. So it was such a wonderful operetta. Unfortunately, never just happened. I never got to sing it on stage after 1980 in Paris. So I had such fun. I mean, I wish I had been a little less nervous, so I would have even enjoyed it more. But I loved doing it, and of course the music. It's definitely my favorite operetta. Although I did as a singer, although I did Rosalinda earlier years, but yeah, but Fidelio seems, the fact that Leonore has money, and the fact that she's such a smart woman, caused, interestingly, also I remember in audiences' reactions, it was kind of, when I was in a concert, especially Peter Stein, Jürgen Film concert, where she's really in her smartness and the goal to free the husband from the jail to do anything. So she goes through this transformation. In that concept, I even went and I suggested to the designer that I cut my hair and I dye it brown. You should have seen the hairdresser's face when I went to the hairdresser and said, I want my hair. I had a longish blonde hair and I want it short. No, you don't. I said, yes, short, and then we dye it brown. And then they wouldn't have liked to do it, but everything for the arts. Might not do it anymore that way radically, but I believed in this concept so that I didn't even want a wig. And then the fact that to get through, I found it a brilliant idea that she starts flirting because she wins Marcellina. And really that it gets something, we know it from the story that Marcellina fancies things that she's a man, but the fact that she plays with it in that concept, we did. I remember the uneasiness by some of the male colleagues, and I remember somebody making, and in some note sessions, they make jokes about that, and they tried to kind of laugh. Because it was not interesting to see my male colleagues getting nervous about these two women on stage in that concept that Leonore was flirting with Marcellina and actually giving gas here to because that would help her. So she's as ruthless as any man would be doing the same. Or this one woman in one panel said that about my Fidelio. She's quite ruthless. I said, yeah. I mean, she has this goal. She's going to free her husband. But these male colleagues making jokes, and I said in the note session, I said, shut up, you guys. I'll carry my bad reviews, and you carry yours, okay? And then it was all good. But you know, after the performances came, I remember also the audience members found it uneasy that the woman is so, how do you say, it's all premeditated, she has a plan, because she's very smart, and it's nothing conventional in it. That's why I loved Fidelio, because of the story. It's so timeless. It's so timeless. Who wouldn't? Yes, and then the opening night party, and I sat with these donor couples, and the men who helped to the chair, and they said something kind of half laughingly about the woman about that flirting, hinting somehow, you know, their wives or something. And I said, you know, if you were in jail, or you know, somebody was in jail, and your wife wants to rescue you, she would do exactly the same. And the riskier the circumstances, as in this, in Jürgen film, it was like situated in the 50s, 60s, like in a South American jail. I mean, most horrible place that I think. So very dangerous. This danger was the factor. So you have to have a plan. One misstep, and you get killed. So, and there was this gun. That was the first time that I was handling a gun. It wasn't, of course, a real gun, but I had to keep a gun. I mean, I'm a farmer's daughter, a hunter's daughter, but I never even kept the rifle in my hand. So it was quite an experience. But I like those kinds of things that. Nobody says in the libretto that a woman is supposed to be somehow think conventionally or be shy or be afraid. I'm sure Leonore, there is this, of course she's afraid because there's one wrong move and she can get killed. But that's a healthy emotion. But she's not, but she's relentless and totally determined with this plan to make it work, to free her husband. Isn't that the most noble thing? And that's why I just that woman and Beethoven wrote, and this is, I'm so privileged to do that part. So I really admire that. I think I'm lost again.
That actually ends up pretty well where we might think some more about Leonore, who you just mentioned, somebody who gets to transgress a lot. She's smart, she's ruthless, she's cunning, she goes to halfway seducing Mattila, she handles a gun. So we can see she does all that, but it's framed in, but she doesn't offer a husband, so it's okay. Which is also kind of retroacting at the late 18th century. How do I show women with agency, but I make up an excuse because she's a wife, and she does it because she's a wife. But of course she's privileged. She has money to pay for a transformation, perhaps also for a fancy haircut.
No, it wasn't meant to be fancy. I said in the hairdresser that it has to look like I did it myself. Because she doesn't, no, because it's all secret. She wouldn't do it. She wouldn't do it by, no. She wouldn't go to somebody to cut her. No. She would do it herself. So it had to be a little bit kind of like wild. So it's not all that even. So that made the hairdresser even feeling more uneasy. But I think the result was good. Yes, but it is true that to make that plan, all the traveling and all that, to make up, of course, she has to have money. Yes.
Perhaps we can make an intersectional link here. What happens if you have no money? And we've seen it a bit with the Janacek woman, how much more the pressure is on if you don't have financial means and you depend on men who have some money but also not much. So that would be one thing, and the other would be age. I mean, what happens when these women grow older? Usually we have, if we look at an opera, we have, I exaggerate, 12 parts. Of them, 2 are women, 1 is the lead, the other one gets 3 lines perhaps, and she's pretty, she's young, she's in love, she can't do anything else, at the end she's dead. So there's a small rep, and they are all so young when they die, and it's love and it's dying. Are women ever allowed to get older on stage, and are they allowed to get older and still be in love? For example, you mentioned the married widow. You might imagine her as a woman who's perhaps not 25, and she gets a chance at that, right? She gets to be older on the stage, and she gets to make her own calls, and she gets to have love. How many do you get that?
Well, I haven't really thought about it. I'm feeling, I mean, I'm 61, and I'm still, and I get to do new roles this year for the first time, 4 new parts. So I haven't really, or maybe when I've sung professionally for almost 40 years. So I haven't really thought about it. Maybe when I was younger I did, but as my characters, I haven't really. I wish these 2 other panel people would be here now. I'm sure they would have something interesting to say. Why don't we ask the audience? What do you think? It was a good question, but I don't really know what to say.
It's something that actually you made me think of, because after we've all seen the critical here, there is one concert you did in, I think last year in Helsinki, the Karita evening.
It was in spring.
Yes,
it was this spring.
It's still online on Opera Vision, and you get to do La Voix Humaine. It's a very
Humaine on the first half, and then show.
And then show. And it's such a positive portrayal, I thought. I mean, it's exactly this. So you see a singer who is allowed to get older, and it was positive. I found it very affirming, the whole concert. You know, it was celebrating being sexy, being happy, focusing on love and not on dying.
Yeah, there is also it was a crazy project. Now in retrospect, I mean, well, like 2 performances on one evening, but yeah, but it was like a little stretch in your limits too. But the audience loved it, and I loved I learned to love it. Although it felt like at times like a sports event, like an achievement.
There was a lot of dancing.
Yeah, and plus the fact that my version of La Bohème, I was on stage for 1 hour and 5 minutes, and it was a fabulous experience. But after that, I would just like to go home. I was just so shocked because yeah, there's one woman who kills herself. There's one woman who kills herself at the end because the man has abandoned her, and well, in Poulenc, he says that the lady should be young and elegant, not somebody who has kind of like you know, like but I understood it like mentally young, so it wasn't really a problem for me to understand. So it was a good experience in that sense, and I was happy to be able to learn it. I have never done it before, so to get an opportunity to do it. Exactly. But hey,
we're getting already nervous.
Yes.
I was wondering. I thought this is going to be a short interview.
It seems we have arrived at the end. Many thanks for taking the time to come out here.
Thank you. I'm so sorry